So our next speaker now is Mr. Chinmoy Vajpeyee, and he has over 19 years of work experience. He has a doctorate in management, Knight certified NLP business practitioner, ISTD merit holder, and a lifetime member, and also has also been facilitated by World HRD Conference with Training Leaders of the Year award at international level. He's also a dab hand at setting up training evaluation system. Psychology-based interventions constitute his core interest area. Andragogy happens to be his forte. He will talk about new concepts in training evolution. Yes, sir.
Thank you, Sheetal, and greetings to all the eminent speakers and panel members, as well as the participants. And I owe my gratitude to Plan My Trainings and Lucky for putting up this show and giving me a platform to share my views. So right away, I would start with my presentation. Allow me to share the screen. Right. So the topic that I had given to this presentation is wake up and smell the coffee. Now, as per Merriam-Webster, it means to realize the truth about one's situation, to become aware of what is really happening. So as far as training evaluation is concerned, let us first ponder on as to what the reality is. So what really is happening as of now is, in terms of any training, I guess every participant who attends the training is handed a sheet of paper at the end of the training, basically for a feedback. And in most of the companies, most of the organizations, training evaluation is done at that stage. So some of the typical questions that are asked are, how was the training? How was the content? How was the trainer? How was the delivery? Any suggestions about topics, boarding and lodging arrangements? And as far as the trainers are concerned, they limit themselves to man hours and maybe in some cases, this course, the post-training examination or tests. So this is what really is happening as of now. I would like to go for a poll if possible here. Yes, post-training evaluation is a dash step process. So I would request all the panel members or maybe the participants to answer this as to how many steps the post-training evaluation they have faced in post-training evaluation. Uh, is the poll visible? Yeah. So one. So as expected, I guess majority of the people have responded with one. That is 40%. That only at one level and one level they were evaluated post training. So now what needs to happen? I guess probable questions could be, was the training successful? What did the participants learn? And could it achieve the objective or the goal as far as the training is concerned? And how much learning took place? And maybe did it result in change in behavior? Now, this is a very tricky question as such. Behavior change measurement as such. Even the post-training scores, most of the L&D professionals or even HR professionals don't know as to what to do with those post-training scores. Okay, so now evaluation, if we talk about without going into into deep and make it sound more academic, I would just touch it at a cursory level. There are different ways to evaluate. There are different models basically. Kirkpatrick, Zero, Xerox model, US Air Force model, Warren Bird model. Now these are some of the models which can be put to use as far as post-training evaluation is concerned. Now, in detail, if we talk about Kirkpatrick, it has a wider range of application and it is an industry standard. So when we make a generalized comment, that participants lack vocabulary skills, or let's say participants lack the attitude, I guess it has to have some logic behind that. Unless and until we have a clearly laid down in detail guidelines for evaluation, we cannot be sure as to where the loopholes are. So let's say, for example, Kirkpatrick, if you talk about, it has around 4 levels. Reaction is the first level, wherein we take the feedback of the participants. Just now, as we discussed, as to how was the training, how was the trainer, how was the delivery, etc. Now, the second level is the learning, wherein we gauge as to whether the participants learn something out of the training. So, what was the learning levels? What were the learning levels before the training, and what are the learning levels now post training? Third, and the most crucial part is behavior, which actually entails transfer of learning to the job. Now, it also inter really includes individual factors like efficacy, learning confidence, motivation, as per Sellis and Canpas. So now this is where psychology-based interventions come into picture to bolster this particular step. And as Rajiv also said, no amount of soft skills training can actually change unless and until there is a change somewhere else. And last but not the least, the result. As to what was the result of the training? Was it able to achieve the objective for which the training was conducted? Right. Now, the status is just in case if things go haywire at the third step, that is the behavior. If we fail to evaluate as to what was the effect of training on behavior, this is what is the status right now. Now, the respective percentages are, be it any of the top private sector banks or IT companies, this is the level right now. 95% of the companies evaluate training only at level 1, and pitiable and inadequate 2 to 4% of the companies evaluate training at level 2, 3, and beyond. So now, if the evaluation is the status of the evaluation is this, it is bound to go haywire at stage 3, and then this is what happens. As per an IBM study 2016, most significant gaps, as also pointed out by Rajiv, exist in behavioral and leadership skills rather than hard skills, or let's say digital skills or core area skills. More than half of the CHROs, as per more than half of the CHROs, college pass outs lack skills. This might be of some interest to Miss Khanna as such. They lack skills in problem solving, teamwork, leadership, basically soft skills. Last but not the least, 67% of the offers which were withheld by the HR were because of lack of soft skill set. Another startling point is fact is 90% of the skills are lost and forgotten within a year. Now we have a tendency to confuse entertainment quotient with knowledge quotient. At times we do rope in the who's who, the bigwigs of the Indian corporate sector for lectures and all that stuff. It might be entertaining, but was it knowledgeable? Did it actually affect anything in terms of learning, in terms of behavior, or in terms of the result which the organization is looking for? That's a question that all the HR heads or maybe the HR professionals and L&D professionals should be asking. Now, this is where the psychscape comes into picture. Just like you have landscape, so we call it psychscape. Every person is so different. The moment we start thinking about that, we need to teach confidence, we need to talk about attitude, I guess we are treading the wrong path, because every person is different and they have different problems. I'll tell you how in the next slide. So every person would be really different as far as the psychscape is concerned. The point is, instead of trying to teach them, it is better to help them learn as to what are they looking for, because everybody has his own mental lines or the blocks as such. So now I was happy hearing about psychometrics. I did find a mention in Ms. Khanna's delivery. Now, psychometrics is a good thing to start with, but definitely not the end, because psychometrics is just like a maybe a blood report or an X-ray, which tells you as to what you lack, what you don't have, or let's say what you have. But then this is where psychology comes into picture, because it tells you how to have what you don't have. Ideally, the situation should be, see, it is beyond HR's prerogative. It is beyond HR heads or HR professionals' domain. A 5-minute interview, 15-minute interview, 30-minute interview cannot actually obviate the need of a psychologist or person who is trained into reading minds as far as the behavior requirements are concerned. Now, let's say, for example, if I talk about psychology and how all of us are different. If I ask you a question, what would you like to have, tea or coffee? Now, maybe you would say tea or coffee. Now, this is a very tricky question, an unclean question, corrupted question, because I'm already giving you two options. The Hobson's choice, basically, a choice of no choice. You have to choose between tea or coffee, right? So this is where clean language comes into picture, which I practice to amazing results. If I ask you, what would you like to do? Maybe you would say you would like to have lunch instead of drinking something. This is the magic of clean language or psychology. Sometimes we say that I am stuck. Let's say a student or an employee says, I am stuck, life sucks, or I am stuck. Now, there could be so many different connotations to it. I'm stuck like what? In sand, in quicksand, behind closed doors, or in a cave. So now there is a model which was suggested called RPO model. R stands for remedy, P stands for problem, and then O stands for outcome. I'm not going into the details because I'm addressing uninitiated crowd as of now, as far as NLP and psychology is concerned. So let's say, for example, if I say I'm a chain smoker, now this is a problem. If I say I want to quit smoking, this is a remedy. And if I say I want to live healthier life, now this is an outcome. So normally people take three out of these three roads or three ways, three options, they take one option. And accordingly, you need to delve deeper. Now, latest trends, of course, Bhupendraji has already taken up. But to my amusement and interest, augmented reality has tremendous scope as far as supplementing the efforts of the trainers are concerned. And the challenges, the real challenges are, I already know this stuff because whenever you start or embark upon a journey of behavior modification or training, normally, as far as andragogy is concerned, the participants would quip that they already knew this, they already know this stuff. And this is again one of the kinds of mental minds which has to be removed unless and until they are convinced that they are the ones who really need to attend a training. No amount of training, be it technical skill, be it soft skills, would yield any result. And a bigger challenge is application to larger groups, because any psychology based training, or let's say NLP based training, and mind you, when I say psychology based training, they have near permanent results. It is not like, if you organize a motivational seminar, or let's say corporate bigwigs lecture, the effect normally wanes too quickly. So it doesn't affect them permanently. But when you talk about psychology, yes, they do affect permanently. So whenever somebody is not performing, it is not necessarily that he doesn't have the knowledge. It is not necessarily that he doesn't know how to transfer the knowledge to the job. It could be that there is something which is stopping him, and it is only one person who knows that. It is that particular person. So yes, the psychscape is really different, and I wish we could come out with some ways wherein these psychology-based interventions could be applied to larger groups as well. So that would be a joy to watch. So in respect of the time crunch and constraint, I just finished off with my presentation a bit early. So over to you, Lucky, and maybe if you have any questions.
Okay. Thank you, Dr. Chinmoy. If there are any questions, we can take a one question maybe, or we can move to the next session.
I have a question to Dr. Chinmoy. I thank you for the enlightening session. I was just wondering about the applicability to the education sector. Can we use,
Right.
how do we address this to the education sector, to the students
Okay,
especially, to
I'll just
make them
cite an
more employable?
example. Sure. I'll just try and answer this question by an example so that you could understand the importance of the psychology and the NLP thing. I have two kids, my son who is in 10th standard and my daughter who is in 4th standard. Now, both of them receive knowledge and information in different ways. Let's say, for example, my son likes to hear things out. He reads out loud to learn something or cram up something or to understand something. He's very talkative. On the other hand, my daughter, she likes to read and see things to learn. So these are called filters as per NLP. Now, every person has different sets of filter. Let's say, for example, if Rajiv is still online, I don't know if he is, just by looking at his
I
presentations,
am.
maybe I can say that, you are more of a visual character. You like to see things, you like to see colors and, maybe the different fonts and all that stuff. Maybe, because I don't know who made that presentation. Just in case if you have made that presentation, maybe you are a visual character. So to appeal to somebody like you or somebody who is visual, naturally I would be like writing a mail or an email with beautiful highlighters, usage and fonts and all that stuff. So as far as pedagogy is concerned, you need to figure out how the child receives and filters and amasses information. That is really important. See, content is not a big deal nowadays. As far as Google is concerned, I guess there is no teacher bigger than Google. You can Google out anything and everything. So content is there. The trick lies in how to do it. I remember one of the dialogues from the movie Three Idiots, wherein Amir Khan poses as a teacher and says ki, I'm not here to teach, I'm just here to teach you how to teach. So that really matters. How are you putting across your point to different people, because different people are so different. So my advice for anybody who is a mother, who is a father, or who is a teacher and who is handling andragogy or pedagogy, the starting point is the subject. I mean, the one who is receiving the information, the one who is attending the training, the one who is sitting in the classroom. Talk to him or her and figure out as to how he or she would want it to be. It doesn't matter what I want. It doesn't matter what the other eminent, HR professionals or L&D professionals want. What matters, and the only thing which matters, is what the recipient wants. So make it the starting point.
I think, Chinmay, the evolution of various ways of pedagogical interventions that have happened in the institutions is more to do with the learning styles. And it is because of the diversity that we have in our classrooms today. So typically when we were students some years back, the teachers only gave some lecture in the class, wrote something on the blackboard and went off. Half of the things never went into our brains, because all of us had a different style of learning. Today, the teachers are bringing in project-based learning. There are other methods by which we are being taught. That is only to reach out to a segment of students who do not learn that way at all.
So true, Ms. Khanna. In fact, if you look at it, I'll give you the rationale behind it. You are so correct that, nowadays you have whiteboards and all that stuff, wherein videos can be shown, sound effects are there. Actually, they are appealing to all the three senses. If you read Shakespeare, if you have read Shakespeare, or if you read Shakespeare, why such authors are so great and eminent? Appeal to all the three senses. Now, what are the three senses as per NLP? There are visual, there are audio, and there are kinesthetics. That is people who feel. Now, anybody who can appeal to all these three senses would be appealing. So this is the basis of the new learning pedagogy styles, wherein people are employing all these three tactics. But the trick is, you could actually increase the proportion, and that depends wholly and solely on the teacher. Let's say, for example, if some kid is visual, now the teacher has the right to increase that proportion. Let's say, for example, making him read more or making him see more. This is a challenge when it comes to NLP and psychology, that normally these are very subjective. They cannot be applied to groups at large. That is one of the problems that we face.
In fact, we recently did an NLP practitioners program, very basic program for our teachers for two things. So one was, of course, the learning styles, to understand the learning styles, which you just explained. And the other was the typical eye thing. So by looking at the movement of the eyeballs of the student, you can make out whether the answer the child is given is actually true, or is he making something out of the blue and speaking. So it makes a lot of difference actually. And I really feel NLP works a lot in that. Yes.
It really works a lot, because let's say, for example, you talked about eye movement. You know the rationale behind it. I can tell you as to what is the rationale behind it. See, if somebody is visual, normally he would be looking up like this, right? Eyeballs would be up normally. Now, if you talk about the people who listen and learn through ears, right? They would be like fluctuating from right to left normally again. And people who are kinesthetics, they normally look down when they are like across with something. Now, again, people who are visual, or let's say somebody who is recollecting something from the past, he might look at right top corner. Now pay attention to what I'm saying now. He would look right top corner if he's recollecting something. But if he's making up something, he has a tendency of looking up left corner, top left corner. So the moment, if you ask not just kids, but even in interviews, the moment a candidate
Yeah.
looks a left top corner while detailing about his experience and qualifications, most probably he's lying and he's fabricating. So this is the magic of NLP. Unfortunately, it is unseen. Yes, it would take time before the Grovian methods find a place and a footing as far as Indian corporates are concerned.